The wind screamed across Ash Hollow, carrying sand and grit that bit against the skin like needles. Elias Kane pulled the brim of his hat low, his boots sinking in the dust-churned ground as he crossed the fence line of his ranch. Nights on the frontier were never truly silent. The coyotes wailed, the wind rattled old boards, and in the distance, iron wheels groaned along half-built tracks, but tonight, the storm had swallowed every sound. He almost missed it at first, a shape crumpled against a dying mesquite tree. His steps slowed, eyes narrowing. A woman. Clothes torn, face pale as bone, her chest heaving in shallow bursts. She clutched a wooden crate tight against her, arms wrapped around it like it was part of her body. Strange markings had been burned into the lid, symbols he didn't recognize, curling like snakes. When he crouched beside her, the lantern at his belt revealed the sheen of sweat on her brow, her lips cracked and trembling. Her eyes fluttered open, wild and feverish. "Please, don't lift it," she whispered, her voice like sandpaper dragged across stone. Then her head slumped against his arm, and the storm howled louder, as if to seal her warning into the night. Elias cursed under his breath. He should have walked on. A man with sense would leave her for the coyotes, keep to his land, and never meddle in other people's trouble. But he was not a man untouched by ghosts. The war had left him with scars across his back, and bandits had taken his wife and boy before he could raise a gun to stop them. He told himself those wounds had hardened him, made him cold. Yet here he was, lifting a stranger in his arms and carrying her toward the lantern glow of his ranch house. The crate came too. Heavy, awkward, it thudded against his hip as he dragged it inside. Whatever it wasn't ordinary. It carried a weight that felt more than wood and iron nails, something that pressed against the air itself. He dropped it by the door and laid the woman on his old horse blanket near the fire. Hours passed. The storm raged, rattling shutters and hurling grit against the windows. Elias worked by habit, water boiled, cloth torn, wounds cleaned. She stirred only once, her hand flying up to grip his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't let them find me. Promise." He didn't ask who they were. "Not yet." He simply muttered, "You're safe here tonight," though even as the words left his mouth, he wasn't sure they were true. When dawn finally broke, it revealed her features more clearly. She wasn't as young as he'd thought, late 20s, perhaps 30, her hair tangled but rich and dark, her face lined by exhaustion rather than age. She opened her eyes slowly, studying him with suspicion sharp enough to cut. "You carried me here," she said, voice ragged. "You were about to be carried off by buzzards," he answered. "Didn't see much choice." Her gaze darted toward the crate by the door, then snapped back to him. "You didn't open it?" Elias shook his head. "Figured it wasn't polite." Relief softened her expression, if only for a second. She sat up too quickly and winced, pressing a hand to her ribs. "You don't understand. If anyone opens that box, it'll bring nothing but ruin." Elias leaned against the table, arms crossed. "Lady, you've been running through a storm clutching that thing like it's your own beating heart. You want me to believe it's better left shut? Then you'll have to do better than warnings." She flinched, as though considering her words carefully. Finally, she whispered, "I can't. Not now. Just know that men will come for it. They'll come for me. And if you're standing in the way, they'll kill you too." Elias studied her in silence. She wasn't lying, that much he could tell. Her eyes carried the look of someone hunted too long, someone running not from guilt but from terror. He wanted to push her out, send her packing with her cursed box, but the memory of his wife's scream, the fire in their cabin, chained his tongue. He'd failed once before. He would not fail again. By mid-morning, the horizon shifted. Dark shapes moved against the rising sun. Riders. 3 of them at first, then 5. Elias stiffened, jaw clenching. They were spread out, searching, circling like wolves. His hand drifted to the Winchester leaning against the wall. "They've found me," the woman whispered. Elias grabbed his hat. "Name?" Her lips parted, hesitated, then answered, "Clara." He gave a single nod. "Stay low, Clara." The horses thundered closer, dust plumes curling around their legs. Elias stepped onto the porch, rifle resting easy against his shoulder. He looked like a man out to greet neighbors, but his finger brushed the trigger guard. The lead rider called out, "Morning, Kane. Got word you're keeping company with a lady carrying something don't belong to her." Elias spat into the dirt. "Word travels faster than it ought to." "Hand her over," the rider said. "And the box. You can keep your life, maybe even your ranch." Elias's eyes narrowed, voice dropping low. "I buried too many promises out here. I don't reckon I'll bury one more today." The first shot cracked before the man finished smirking. Bullets tore into the porch post, wood splintering into Elias's face. He dove behind the trough, fired once, twice. 2 riders dropped screaming into the dust. Horses screamed and scattered. Clara's muffled cry carried from inside as the gunfire roared, sharp and merciless. Elias moved like the soldier he had once been, swift, precise, every shot deliberate. The barn door swung open, and he ducked just as a round snapped past his ear. He rolled, fired blind, and another body thudded against the dirt. Blood pooled into the dust, soaking fast, vanishing into thirsty earth. Then silence. The storm had passed. Only the moan of a dying man lingered. Elias stood slowly, breath ragged, shoulders tense. He wiped grit and sweat from his brow, rifle still steady. Clara emerged from the doorway, pale, shaking. She looked at the bodies strewn across the yard, then at Elias, as if seeing him for the first time, not just a rancher, but a man who had survived hell once before and carried it still inside him. "They won't stop," she said, voice hollow. Elias followed her gaze to the crate. Its edges glimmered faintly in the morning sun, as if the symbols carved into the wood had caught fire. No hand touched it, no wind stirred it, yet the sound of faint, metallic ringing filled the air, like a blade being drawn from its sheath. He felt the hair rise along his arms. For the first time in years, Elias Kane felt afraid. The ringing lingered in the air, sharp and unnatural, as if the box itself breathed. Clara sank against the doorframe, her hands trembling, her eyes fixed on the crate as though it might leap open of its own accord. Elias wiped blood from his knuckles and forced his breathing to steady. He wanted to drag the thing outside, burn it, bury it in the deepest hole he could dig, but something in its hum rooted him to the ground. Clara's voice cut through the silence. "You should have let me die out there. Now you're bound to it, same as me." He turned on her sharply. "You think I dragged you through a storm just to throw you to the wolves? I've already buried one family. I'm not burying another soul because I looked the other way." She met his gaze, lips tight, then nodded faintly. "Then you need to hear the truth." Her confession came in fragments, pieced together between shuddered breaths. The crate belonged to the men who built the tracks carving through the West, men who called themselves railroad barons but carried more cruelty than bandits ever had. "Inside," she said, "lay the spoils of a massacre, tokens stolen from the dead, a coat soaked in blood, and something worse, something forged for vengeance." Her father had worn that coat once, a Union officer who ordered men into slaughter to secure land in profit. When the bodies fell, the mask was taken, kept as proof of betrayal, bound in iron so the memory of what was done could never be forgotten. "And you stole it," Elias said. Clara's chin lifted with defiance. "To keep them from using it again. They don't see relics, they see power. Symbols that bend men's fear. I couldn't let them carry it into more towns." Elias stared at her, jaw clenched. He remembered fire, smoke, screams in the night. He remembered a captain's voice condemning his unit to die. The war had chewed him up, spat him out hollow, and now this stranger claimed her bloodline was tied to the very betrayal that had branded him with scars. His fists tightened until his nails bit skin. "Why bring it here?" he demanded. "I didn't choose your ranch," she whispered. "The storm drove me. But maybe it wasn't chance." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. Clara dozed restlessly by the fire, her face twitching with dreams she couldn't outrun. The box sat in the corner, silent now, its carved symbols glinting faintly in the firelight. He tried to look away, but his eyes kept circling back. Each time he blinked, memories clawed free, faces of dead friends, his wife's pleading eyes, the laugh of the man who had burned his home. The box promised answers, or at least a shape to the grief he carried. He told himself it was madness. Then his hand reached out anyway. The lid groaned as it lifted, wood scraping like a blade across stone. Clara bolted upright with a strangled cry, but Elias had already seen. Inside lay a Union officer's coat, the blue cloth darkened with rust-red stains that would never wash away. Beneath it rested the mask iron, heavy, etched with markings like wounds that would never close. When Elias touched it, the cold seared his skin. Flashes tore through his mind. He saw the battlefield again, smoke choking the sky, his comrades cut down while the officer rode away untouched. He saw Clara's father, smirking beneath that very coat, signing orders with hands that condemned hundreds. He staggered back, bile rising in his throat. Clara snatched the lid closed, clutching it tight. "I told you not to lift it. Do you see now? It doesn't just hold relics, it holds memory. And it binds whoever touches it." Elias's breath came ragged. Rage warred with grief inside him. "Your father," his voice cracked, raw. "He's the reason my men died screaming. He's the reason I came home to bury ashes where my family once stood." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "And he's the reason I ran. I won't carry his sins. I won't let them poison the world again." Before he could speak, the ground quaked with the thunder of hooves. More riders, more guns. Shadows flickered against the windows. The tycoons had not lost interest. They had come in force. The first bullet shattered glass, spraying shards across the floor. Elias threw Clara down, snatched his rifle, and fired through the splintered pane. Flames flared as a lantern fell, spilling across the boards. The ranch groaned under the assault, every wall shaking, the air thick with smoke and lead. He fought like a man possessed, each shot an echo of the war he had tried to bury. His body remembered every maneuver, every desperate tactic. He moved fast, brutal, relentless. Men fell screaming into the fire-lit dust. Horses bucked and tore loose, chaos ripping through their ranks. Clara dragged the crate toward the back, shielding it even as smoke choked her lungs. "We can't let them have it," she shouted. The barn caught next, flames leaping high, sparks raining down. Elias emptied his last round into the leader, watched him topple from the saddle, and then silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of fire. The ranch was lost. His fields, his fences, every board he had hammered with his own hands gone. But Clara still stood, coughing, eyes glistening with tears. The crate sat between them, scarred, glowing faintly in the dying firelight. Elias lowered his rifle. His body trembled from exhaustion, but his voice was steady. "I can't bury the past, Clara. Not yours, not mine. But I can choose what I do with it." She wiped soot from her cheek. "Then what do we do?" He looked east, where dawn began to creep over the blackened horizon. The light touched the ashes, turning them gold for a fleeting moment. He thought of his wife, of his boy, of the men he had lost. For the first time, the weight on his chest lifted, not gone, but shifted, shared. "We ride," he said. "We take it far from their hands. And maybe one day, we find a way to end it for good." Clara studied him, then nodded. A fragile smile cracked through her soot-streaked face. They mounted horses as the sun broke fully, the ranch smoldering behind them. The crate lay strapped between them, silent once more. Elias did not know if the journey ahead would bring salvation or ruin, but he knew he would not face it alone. The narrator's voice seemed to ride with them in the wind, low and reflective. Out here, every man carried his ghosts. Some boxes stayed shut. Some were opened. And when they were, they carved new paths through the dust. And as the sun climbed higher, the question lingered, whispered to anyone listening, what would you have done? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.